Murray Hidary, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Thank you. Great to be here with both of you.
Great to be here for sure. We would love to hear about how you found your plant-based vegetarian lifestyle.
But before we
Oh,
do, we'd love a moment of gratitude if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I had a concert last night on the beach in St. Petersburg, and it was the most glorious sunset. So I just want to take a moment to be grateful for sunsets and that each one is totally different. There's not two sunsets that are the same. And that's such an easy thing to take for granted. But when we bring some attention to it, it's just magic, isn't it?
it really is. Our daughter's very into sunsets right now, and she loves taking pictures of them, but they never quite look the same on your iPhone camera than they do
Yeah.
in real life.
Good. And I think that's a good thing, right? So we actually have to go and see it in person.
I think a lot of people miss it because they're focused on taking the picture and they're
Right.
actually not focused on what's actually going on until they
Yeah.
look at it later, I guess. But they don't see
Yeah.
it
It's
in the
it's
moment.
fun sometimes to take a picture of people taking a picture of the sunset, kind of a meta thing there, just to as the commentary on exactly that point, Adam.
Yeah. Now we go
Now
to
Okay.
I've never done
tell
that
us.
before.
Yeah, no, hey, it's only 490 so odd episodes in, so it's
You'll get the
okay.
hang of it soon. You'll get the hang of
At some point.
it.
So tell us how you found your plant-based vegetarian lifestyle.
For me, it was a class I took in college, and that's when I learned the impact. I was taking an environmental conservation class, one of the many different things I studied in those early college years, and I remember learning for the first time the impact of particularly cattle grazing was what struck me, the environmental impact of it, and someone who loves nature so much. It just really just startled me how much the food choices we make impact our planet. And that's where it started for me. And it drove my mother crazy in the beginning because I grew up in a Jewish family with lots of meat dishes and Shabbat dinners, and it was frustrating for her. But now I think several, if not almost all of my family members are mostly vegetarian and certainly conscious if it's not vegetarian.
That's great, and it's nice to see that ripple effect of
Yeah,
how somebody impacted you, and then clearly you've been able to impact your family as well, and taking away that footprint is huge.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it takes a decade for that ripple, right, to take place, and it's okay. It happens when it happens. When someone's ready to hear the message, then they hear it, and they just can't hear it before that.
So you know that now. Did you know that then?
Uh, Certainly as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, it's not something you certainly have a more of an urgency and an idealism for the moment, right?
Yeah,
But that's something I definitely learned with age.
definitely. And I think too, I think we see it like that too. But at the beginning, we were very, how come nobody else is thinking like us? But we told them all these things. But it happens over time. So when did the idea of music for healing come into that?
Yeah, and I grew up playing music since I was 5 years old. So music has always been a, a real companion for me, I think is the best word. A companion emotionally, a companion spiritually. It's what I turn to constantly from a young age till today, through the good times and the bad. It's a way for me to process emotions. It's a way for me to also connect universally, right? To connect with the cosmos, with all of it. Then I found meditation as a teenager, and it was a book, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. You're probably familiar with it. I'm sure many people in your audience have read it. And that set me down kind of a pathway of Eastern philosophy and ideas. And those two came together, meditation, Eastern ideas, and Western classical music. And I found myself sitting at the piano as a composer, which is what I studied in university. I found myself kind of playing and using music as a way to process all of it. And that's really the DNA, the origin of what I do today as MindTravel.
So I love the connection there because for some people, sitting in silence in meditation is just not going to work with them. Some people are very connected to music, so that can keep them connected. And people whose minds whose minds travel,
Right.
it's easier to maybe keep it down the proper path for a more meditative mindfulness state.
Yeah, and what I found, when I formally became a meditation teacher and got much deeper into it, I heard from so many people what a challenge more traditional meditation is for them, and so most would just stop doing it. And I think many of us can relate to that. And so with mind travel, it really leverages how the brain works. And what I mean by that is, it's so easy to think that when you're in your sitting meditation, you have all these thoughts and you're like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I'm not good at meditation, right? That's a common uh, statement people make. So they think they're doing it wrong, or it's just not for them, when they're doing it just fine. It just takes time for the mind to settle. Now, the brain as a machine is not something we can subtract from, meaning we can't tell the brain not to think of something, right? The classic "don't think of a pink elephant," right? Now that's it. Now that's all that's stuck in your head. But the brain is additive, so it's not subtractive, but it is additive. So if we introduce something new, then it can replace what's there. And so music in the mind travel experience plays that role, right? So we're constantly introducing the right kind of music, the right kind of patterns, the right kind of frequencies, and the brain has something to bring its focus to. And then you find that all the other stuff starts to fall away and that you're in this beautiful state. So that's a big part of why I think so many people relate and why mind travel has become so accessible.
So can you define it as reprogramming neuroplasticity to be able to meditate? Would that kind of work?
Yeah, and the neuroplasticity, right, is what's happening in that state. I like to think of, it's, of course, it's very fluid. It's a spectrum of states, but we have brain waves, right, that are taking place. The brain is an electric organ, right? There's electricity running through it. So there are frequencies that we call brain waves, and there's different types of brain waves. We have, right now, we're probably in a beta state. That's a certain frequency level. When we're sleeping, right, the brain waves slow down, allow us to recover, allow us to rest. So we have slower brain waves. There's actually a couple of states there, right? We have REM sleep, where we're dreaming. We have deep sleep. These are different frequencies. One's the deep sleep slower than the other. But there's another awake state, right? It's not just awake or sleeping, but there's another state. We call that alpha state, or the fourth state of consciousness. And that's something where you're awake, you remember the experience, but you're hyper focused and present. It's like a still alertness, if you will. You have a stillness, but an alertness in the present moment. Some people can relate to it as a flow state, perhaps. But it's something that anyone can achieve, not just an athlete or something like that. So that's something that is available, through this experience.
So the kind of meditation that we're talking about now, who would that be for? Is it for, you mentioned athletes, so that just rung out in my brain, but is this for an everyday person or somebody who's doing something specific? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, this is an everyday experience, accessible to anyone. At the concert last night, at the concert tomorrow, we'll have, I had an 8-year-old come up to me after the show last night, just beaming. Her smile was just glowing about how peaceful and calm she felt, and how she interacted with it. And then I had an 88-year-old woman actually celebrating her birthday last night, and she experienced, kind of through the music, her whole life opening before her, and she found a tremendous calm through the experience. So, and everyone in between. And having said that, yeah, I've had Olympic athletes put their headphones on to listen to a mind travel before a race, because it just focuses them into that moment. So it really is malleable to whatever's needed, and music really is magical in that way.
So I heard you just say, and they put their headphones on and they listen to a mind travel. So does that mean that these are recordings of you playing piano and you're just talking over it, or or is it just the music, or what is it?
Yeah, so in a live experience, people gather usually in nature. So we typically do them in the most beautiful beaches around the country. And once they're at the beach, we give them the headphones and I play live and you hear it in the headphones. So it provides a very intimate, direct, very personal experience, almost like I'm playing just for you. And then you're taking in nature, you're taking in the ocean, the sky, the stars, all of it. And then there's some spoken word, some narration, poetry, guidance that is over the piano for part of it. So it provides this expansion as well. And I think what people find is that they're having a very personal, unique experience, but then they look around and see hundreds and hundreds of other people having their own individual experience, but we're all sharing that together. And this beautiful balance, this duality, right, of yes, I have my own experience, but we're also having a communal experience. And that, I think, is such an important way to move through life with that understanding, right? It's so easy to think that when we go through struggle, we're the only ones going through that, right? That we're alone in our struggle, with our pain, whatever it is we're going through. But ultimately, everyone has their burden. Everyone's shouldering their burden in their own way. And here people can come together. And at the end, we actually open the mic and people can get up and share what's on their heart. And it's an incredible healing part of the process as well. And so the music opens up the heart, and then people have the opportunity to feel it through. And then they leave feeling lighter, more present, calmer, like that little 8-year-old girl.
I love that because we as humans have this need for community. We have this need for shared experience, but we also have this very individual, we need to be recognized as individuals as well. So what you're like, the part that I took away the most is you're breaking it down so that everybody is going through the same thing on this bigger level, but you're all having your own personal experience. So even within the four walls of this house, something happens in this house,
Mm-hmm.
all four and a dog of us are going to experience that in a same way. Or there are big things happening in the world right now, and every single person in the world is going to experience that in a different way too. So to feel that community part of it, but also feel present as an individual, I think can really bring down the nervous system, can
Yeah.
bring down anxiety, can allow you to be seen through whatever it is that you're going through.
Absolutely. If we think back to just a couple years ago, during the pandemic, it was probably one of the few times, certainly for us in this generation, that we could think about where you had this collective experience, right? The whole world, literally the whole world was going through it. But each of us had, right, our own perch during that pandemic, right? And went through it each in our own way with our own struggles, whether it was financial, health, family, whatever it might have been. And so that's kind of another good example of this, to kind of give the biggest possible picture, right? And today there's a lot of conflict in the world, and it could seem like, oh well, that doesn't affect me. I live in the middle of Kansas or wherever. I'm halfway around the world, but ultimately it does, right? And understanding that cohesion, and that all of us, yes, we have different details, but we're all moving through a pretty similar arc of the human experience.
So what kind of results, or maybe I'll use that word loosely, are people
Yeah.
getting from going through this kind of meditation on a regular basis? What are you seeing from people?
I think probably the best way to think about this is in the same way that diet, right? Our nutrition is such a critical element to our physical well-being, right? And by the way, yes, we also know that our diet and our nutrition and what we put in our bodies is a critical element to our emotional and mental well-being as well, right? Just feeling, right? Feeling good is directly related to our mental state. And so in this way, right, our diet, meaning of like what we're intaking in terms of media, in terms of music, right, is also critical. And so when people choose to do a mind travel in person or a recording. We also do virtual experiences. However they choose to do it, that's part of their diet, information diet, right? Stimulus diet. And so, it's a very important part of our mental health, and the quality of our lives, right, is not just a physical quality, but the quality of our thoughts, the quality of our emotions, and how we navigate those emotions. Whether we stay stuck and attached to something, or whether we're able to move through it, right, with more facility. And that's really what mind travel is about, right? It's picking up the baton, right, and saying, okay, we're now going to really help navigate our emotional space, right, our headspace and all of that. So, we've had folks come up, and I've had many attendees write letters or messages, and it was a couple of months ago, we had someone wrote me a handwritten letter and gave it to me at the end. And she said that she had come to that beach that afternoon, not knowing anything about mind travel, never having heard of it. And she came to the beach because she had a repeating thought in her head, which was, the world doesn't need me anymore. That's what was going on for her. Mm-hmm. And there was some action she was thinking of taking based on that thought. And then she sees a piano, some trees and flowers adorning the beach she came to, potentially end her life. And she sees that and she says, this must be a sign. I'm going to see what this is about. And she ends up buying a ticket, sitting down and joining us. She writes this letter and hands it to me. And she says, I just want to thank you. Just read this when you get home. And when I got home on my bedside, I read this letter. And she told me in the letter that she had gone to the beach with that thought in mind. And now she has a renewed hope for her own future. And I never had a conversation with her, right, about it. It was just the music that opened up something that was already within her. It's not like we somehow cured something. She had the answer within, but the music gave her the space to hear it and to quiet the other thoughts that were getting in the way. And it opened the space for her to feel that there was certainly a motivation to move forward.
So impactful.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing experience to be able to go through. And I know we can't do it now with you live, but maybe we could share some of it with our audience. They have headphones on right now, most likely.
Right.
So it might work virtually if that works for you. Maybe now's a good time to do it.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put out our normal caution for when we do a meditation on the podcast. If you're riding a bike or driving a car, you might want to fast forward and come back to it later. We don't want you to get so deep within yourself you don't know your actual surroundings. So make sure that you're in a comfortable spot, a safe spot for some mind travel right now.
Let's see if this works.
So let's just get comfortable wherever you are, whether you're sitting or lying down, both are fine. And I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. As we just settle in, putting the busy day behind you. And just come into the listening. Listening of the music. Listening of your body. Just be in this moment. Listening to each note of the piano as it rises and falls away. One note into the other. Each note only in the present moment. we can think of thoughts that arise like notes, like every note on the piano. A thought rises and falls away, fades away. And we just allow it. We just listen. But like a note of music, we don't try to grasp it. We don't try to hold on to it. We just listen and let it go. Maybe it's in those times when we have a thought that we try to hold on to that the struggle begins. But what if we didn't believe every thought that arose? Because we have the thought doesn't mean it's the truth. Doesn't mean the thought is right. It doesn't even mean we have control over that thought arising, does it? It kind of just happens, right? So we listen and let it go. Like clouds passing in the sky. It'd be kind of silly to try to grab that cloud, wouldn't it? To lasso the cloud to hold on to it. That's the same thing as trying to hold on to a thought. Just let it pass on through. Just letting it move on through. As you listen to the music now, let's see if we can open the heart just a little bit more. As you open your heart, what do you feel? What do you find awaits your discovery? And whatever you find, whatever you feel, just allow it. Without judging it, just allow it. Sometimes in the busyness of all of it, it can be easy to push down pain. You just don't have time for it, right? But here and now, make a little bit of space to feel it through and allow it to dissolve away. When you're ready, when you're comfortable, you can gently open the eyes and we'll come back together.
Sweet.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that.
Hopefully the music was not too loud because I was playing that on my side and you were talking on your side. So hopefully the voice came through for most people.
Yeah,
all
it
the
sounded
time.
good.
Yeah.
Sounded good from my end. So yes, to see how it works. And if there's also, if you have the just the voice recorded, you can always layer it later, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was fabulous. I love the imagery of the clouds passing by, right? You
Yeah.
experience them, and sometimes you blink and you open back up and they're even different as they're
Right.
starting to go. So be in that moment, but that moment you don't have to take that moment with you if it's not
That's right.
the most positive moment. That stood out for me. I like that. Thank you.
That was great. Appreciate you sharing that with us. And for our listeners who want to get some more meditation from you or
Mhm.
find out more about mind travel, because the concept is pretty interesting, and being able to go to one of those experiences, I'm just picturing everybody with a headphone,
Yep.
and
It's something
like
else, Adam.
everybody's in an auditorium, and or even at the beach, like you said. It's pretty cool. So where would people go to learn more about it or get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's really easy. Just mindtravel.com, mindtravel.com. And I'm also on Instagram, and I answer people directly at my personal Instagram at Murray Hidary. So if anyone has any questions or wants to discuss any of this further, I'm happy to do that.
Amazing. We're going to link to that in the show notes at planttrainers.com. And I think that you also have some free resources as well on your website. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a wonderful library available for free. And these are recordings of walking meditations, which are just lovely on different themes. And we do them live virtually each month. So anybody can join from anywhere in the world. Even if you can't make it in person to one of our mind travels, you can do it virtually and be with the community.
So I did that last week or the week before. I got on the virtual one for February. So that was absolutely fabulous. And I need your help on working on Jords, because there's one either in Miami or Fort Lauderdale when I'll be down there
Oh, cool.
with her. So
Oh,
if
great.
she's willing, it's her vacation. So if she's willing to go, I'd love to go, and we're gonna meet Jackie there. And
Sounds cool.
so I need your help working on her.
All right.
All
We'll
right.
do
Yeah. Well,
that.
we'd love to have you, and just let me know how many, and we'll set aside tickets for you, and
Oh,
we'll have your headphones ready.
thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Well, Murray, thank you so much for being with us on the Plant
Thanks,
Trainers
Adam. Thanks,
podcast. We
Adam. Thank
appreciate
you.
you taking the time.
Thank you. You
Thank you
guys are
so
great.
much.
See you later.